Welcome back to Oysters, Clams, and Cockles, presented by Bolin Media. I am Ross Bolin, here with Barrett Dudley to continue our coverage of Silo Season 1 on Apple TV+. And Barrett, things are really heating up on screen, not just outside in the summertime.
That's right. Yeah. We had some big moments these couple episodes, and I'm very much looking forward to the final two episodes.
Got two more. 9 and 10.
Yeah. This show continues to, I feel like it's heating up. Speaking of things that are heating up. I think the show is heating up.
It is.
It's number 1 on the Apple TV Plus charts right now.
Yeah. It's battling with Ted Lasso.
Yeah.
Over the last, I think for the last like 4 or 5 weeks, it was Ted Lasso number 1, Silo number 2, and then I've seen them alternate a couple of times in the last couple weeks. But
I was at a birthday function on Friday night, and people were talking Silo. You know, that's what people were watching Silo. They're talking Silo. It's
made its way into the zeitgeist.
Yeah, that's right. Right.
That's huge for us.
Yeah. So, I kind of expect like in a few weeks, like we're going to see a big bump in the numbies, just because like people are like finding the podcast as a Silo companion pod, and it's just gonna, you know.
That'd be a lovely side effect.
Could be the big break we've been looking for.
Oh, shit. After all these shows, finally, Silo is the one that puts us into the mainstream. Yeah, today we're covering episodes 7 and 8 of Silo on Apple TV+. So if you're ready to dive into them, I am.
We should dive into them, but not dive over the ledge of them.
No.
You know, you can't go full Lady Gaga jumping off of the NRG Stadium if you're not harnessed in.
Is that what it reminded you of, the Super Bowl jump?
Yes. Lady Gaga's
like a spider monkey.
Yeah.
That's good stuff.
That's the one.
All right, we closed out episode 6 with Juliet Nichols having received this Georgia travel guide from Computer George's ex-girlfriend, right? Regina Jackson. And we find out that Juliet is being watched by 2 guys in a room with a bunch of screens for monitoring people in the silo. Okay, so then we start out episode 7 with Gloria Hildebrandt, the kooky old fertility doctor, fertility specialist, I should say. And she's having some kind of a hallucination about her family on the beach. And it looks like it's straight out of the Georgia travel guide, the beach scene. We see she's being held in some kind of a medical facility, right? And then we leave her there. Juliet Nichols is then looking at the Georgia travel guide, and she pulls out the Gloria Hildebrandt file, which is one of the files that Sheriff Holston Becker left her. So it's like Holston essentially left Juliet Nichols a bunch of breadcrumbs. In as obscure of an arrangement as possible, usually using Vince, right? Which we get to more of this episode. But she takes both the file and the Georgia guide, and she leaves. And we see the people monitoring her through the camera are working for Robert Sims in Judicial. And indeed, it is confirmed in these 2 episodes that this monitoring area is janitorial, as I expected, right?
Yes. Yes.
So yeah, there's an immediate issue here because they don't want her running around with a red level relic, right? I can't tell if the Georgia guidebook itself is the red level relic or it's the hard drive that she grabs later. I think it's the hard drive that's red level, and I think red level is what automatically gets you sent out to clean. If I'm not mistaken.
Okay. All right. I feel like they could both be.
They could both.
They could be.
You could just sell the Georgia thing as like, oh, this is just some made up book that somebody made or something.
Fantasy.
Whereas,
this is fantasy.
Whereas the hard drive is pretty hard, no pun intended, evidence that bad things are going on here.
Right,
so
right.
At her office,
only if you can access it though.
Yeah.
You know, you gotta have a sysop.
Sysop.
Right.
Yeah.
You need sysop access.
You do.
Yeah.
You do. At her office, Juliet gets a message from maintenance apologizing for breaking her vase, and she asks like, why was maintenance in my apartment in the first place? And Billings is like, I don't know about you people down in the down bottom, down deep, but we don't ask questions about what maintenance does up here. Nobody's allowed to ask questions about anybody.
Don't ask questions about literally anything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
not the move. So,
Asking questions has consequences, Ross.
It does. So Juliet goes down to long-term care. She finds Gloria Hildebrandt. She visits with her. The nurse tells Juliet that Gloria is suffering from hallucinations while Gloria babbles about the water that they don't want us to know about, as she calls it. So Juliet tries to take her on a walk, but the nurse says she can't because Judge Meadows has ordered her to be kept here. So Juliet is off chasing the past, and then Billings is left to deal with the chaos unfolding in the present. Because remember, Juliet is supposed to be the sheriff. She's not doing her job.
No, she's really neglecting her duties.
Yeah.
You know?
She's on a wild goose chase.
Yeah.
Instead. And Billings is left to do the job of sheriff, essentially. So, unfortunately, that means breaking up a massive fight that has erupted over some bar owner who cut off some folks from the lower mids, and they were like, nobody cuts us off. And they came back and just like a fucking gang fight started.
Yeah, very, very relatable scene.
Yeah.
You know, this can happen. Cutting people off is a dangerous game.
It is a dangerous game. One of the underrated parts of being a bartender, I would say, right?
Yeah.
Is that sometimes you got to make that call, and you don't know what that person's reaction is going to be.
You don't.
They may be from the lower mids.
Especially when there's just a lot of tension in the air.
Yeah.
You know, nobody knows what's going on. A bunch of people are dying.
Who built the silo?
Nobody knows who built the silo. People are falling off the railing, like
left and right, yeah.
Left and right. And so tensions are running high, and this type of thing is just, it's going to happen.
So Billings gets extremely pissed off at Juliet Nichols, like, why am I having to do your job? And there's people fighting. I got elbowed in the face. And he demands that she tell him what she is up to. And one of the things I noticed over these 2 episodes is that Juliet is pretty free and loose with her information. Like, you don't have to be that friendly with her for her to, like, you know, judge whether or not you are worthy of being told what she's actually up to.
Yeah.
And in this case, she just tells Billings, like, look, George Wilkins was murdered just like Johns and Marnes and Trumbull, and Billings accepts her explanation. Basically, he's like, oh, okay, I too would neglect my duties if this was my situation.
Yeah.
And he sees that she's grieving, so he helps her along her way trying to find Judge Meadows and tells her, like, the judge gets her breakfast delivered every morning, and she likes bacon and eggs.
She likes bacon and eggs, Juliet.
And that's enough for her to get her foot in the door. So
all the scenes between Juliet and Billings like feel very theatrical. Like I feel like I'm always watching like a stage performance.
Yeah, I think Billings brings that vibe.
Yeah. He's just like very, like the characters are a little bit two-dimensional, I would say right now, or Billings is. He's just like the very like noble police officer, law enforcement man with kind of like a secret that he has to keep hidden, but he's like such a good, noble family man and like has the right values. And look, man, he just believes in the pact. And at the end of the day, that is his code. And so it's all like, all of his scenes are like very like heartfelt, like, you have to tell me what's going on, Juliet.
Yes.
You're hurting my soul.
He's very by the book.
Yeah. And
or
just, you know, you feel bad for the guy, right? Because he's such a nice guy that just is, you know, he's just trying to do his job and see his kids. Man.
Yeah, it shows you the extent of brainwashing in a way, right? Where you can think you're doing the right thing, even if you're doing it at the service of bad people because they've taught you so. Juliet goes down and waits in the stargazing Lucas's little area of the cafeteria. He shows up to talk with her, and Lucas tells her about a time he saw a shooting star, and then he makes his move.
Yeah.
It's kind of a strange moment to pick by the guy. I mean,
well, look, Lucas. Here's the thing. I'm watching the same show that you are, bud, and Juliet has not given any signals. I don't think there's been any crossed wires here, right? Like there's potential for a flirtation to happen.
Sure.
Something to bud here. But like maybe not in the throes of like a quadruple homicide investigation.
Yeah, it didn't seem like good timing.
Yeah, it was the timing was poor.
And they had
so
some
maybe
sparks.
he really hasn't had a girlfriend.
I think that's accurate. I think she was probably that whole exchange was truthful.
Yeah.
That he doesn't really know what he's doing.
She's got a lot on her plate, is what I'm saying.
But he likes her.
Yeah.
You know, he likes her. And she's just not ready for a relationship, Barrett.
He's trying to make sure he doesn't get friend-zoned is what's happening.
Exactly. And she's still grieving. So it's a tough spot.
Yeah.
You know? But things get really awkward. She kind of like just basically runs off. It's like if you tried to kiss somebody in 6th grade and they didn't accept your, you know what I mean? It's like, it's so awkward. But Juliet goes and she meets with the mayor, who tells her that he received a threat from Judge Meadows delivered through Sims because he sided with Nichols, and they didn't like that. And so now the mayor is in danger of being removed from his position, just like Juliet is. So they're kind of in the same spot, you know? He's like, you're just like me. It's crazy.
This explanation that Judge Meadows would like have access to the IT and would do something like fuck with the harvest or whatever was really, really weird to me. It obviously pays off in the following episode, but I definitely, like, I guess it was supposed to, but I was like, that doesn't make any sense.
So
you're saying.
It worked for me because he tells Nichols, like, look, when I worked in IT, it wasn't just any other job. It was the most important job in the silo, Barrett. Because everybody thinks they have the most important job in the silo.
Yes, but then his explanation that, like, what IT does, it's like, well, yeah, you keep the generator going that provides power to all the systems. But that doesn't even matter if the systems fall into the wrong hands. What's Meadows going to do? She's going to, like...
dismantle the entire silo?
Manipulate the code so that, like, the harvest doesn't come in? I don't know. It felt really like a bad explanation of, like, why IT was more important than the thing that powers the IT.
Yeah, it was a pretty generic little spiel here to get him, or to get her to kind of feel like, okay, this guy's kind of in the same boat as me, where like he could be replaced at any moment, and he also doesn't trust Judicial.
Right.
So we share this, right? But yeah, I'm with you. It was a little bit, in hindsight especially, given what we know now, it was a little bit sketchy of an explanation. So he tells Nichols that they need to find something to wall the judge in and keep her from outstepping her bounds. And he basically pushes Juliet Nichols to do what she needs to do to find out what's going on as quickly as possible to save both of their jobs. Now, obviously, knowing what we know, it feels like he was like, all right, I'm going to put pressure on her to go as quickly as she can because now I've got eyes on her and I want to see what the fuck she's up to. I don't like that she's sneaking around. I don't like what she's got going here.
Yeah, maybe like a push to be a little bit careless with the with her. Yeah, with the situation.
So Juliet visits Judge Meadows, brings her breakfast. She's sick at home, or she's feigning sickness.
Yeah, I had a really hard time with the read on this.
Yeah.
Was she getting drunk? Was she at home getting drunk by herself?
I think so.
Was that the implication?
And she's got like a relic decorated apartment. Like she's got a bunch of relics in her apartment.
Yeah.
And what didn't make sense is that she's just like, all right, yeah, come on in. I've got all this shit in here that you probably shouldn't see because it'll change your entire view of me, but fuck it, come on in. You know what I mean? Like, and just knowing what we know, again, it seems like the judge would probably know that Judicial and Sims are watching everything, and yet she like holds this conversation with Juliet in her apartment. It was just kind of like, damn, these people, the recklessness had kind of started to begin here.
Yeah, for me, the only thing that I bumped on this scene really was the lack of clarity about what was happening. Because, like, yes, I got that Judge Meadows is not actually sick. She's not recovering from a cold. She's pouting in her apartment, and there might have been an implication that she had been drinking or just,
she kind of like hit a glass,
yes, right?
So when she did that,
like spiraling out of control or whatever.
I was like, oh, she has the syndrome, and she's drinking something to treat it. But like, I don't think that was it.
No. But at the end of the day, really, what she says, Juliet says that she's like, oh, okay, so basically, like, you get this nice apartment, you get to have the relic decorations, you get to be reminded of the past. Blah, blah, blah. All you have to do is kind of stand out of the way. All of this from seeing Sims there in janitorial at the beginning to this Judge Meadows conversation now here, all kind of confirms what we were saying last week, which is that Meadows is kind of a patsy.
Yeah.
Who doesn't actually know what's going on or have much power at all. She lives in the silo and just kind of like does what she is told and the duties that are put on her plate. Sims is the real seat of power.
Yes.
And he's the baddie.
Yeah.
He's the bad guy.
Yeah. He's our big bad as far as we know through episode 7, right?
Yeah.
But it seems like they've basically told her, like, you didn't do a good job. You fucking stay at home for a while until we clean this up, right?
Yeah.
So she's in there drinking and pouting and faking sick.
Yes.
So Juliet peppers her with questions about Gloria Hildebrandt, who tells her that she's like, we're keeping her in medical for her own good. That's the reasoning. And the judge tells her it's not even possible for her to do anything about Gloria or let her out even for a few hours, and that Juliet needs to stop doing what she's doing. She's given her as much of like a wink, like you're pulling the correct thread, and if you don't stop, the whole sweater's going to unravel.
Right, yes.
But that's exactly what Juliet wants, of course. So she's got relics in there. Juliet figures she gets to keep the relics as long as she stays quiet and out of Judicial's way, as Barrett said. So next, Juliet goes and meets with her dad, Dr. Peter Nichols, a.k.a. Barrett's man, Jorah Mormont. And Juliet shames her deadbeat dad into helping her get Gloria Hildebrandt out of medical long enough for the drugs to wear off so she can talk to her, right? Because they've got her sedated in there. And this was another moment where I was like, what are you, an idiot? She was like, all right, we'll just get her out of here in a wheelchair for a couple hours, and by then all of the mind drugs she's on will completely wear off enough for her to immediately be questioned by me in the baby room, and she'll just give me everything I need to figure this whole thing out, right? It was just a bit of a stretch for me. But yeah, Dr. Nichols goes in and gets Gloria and wheels her to the baby room, which again, it's not surveilled. This is the area that there's no surveillance.
And Dr. Jorah Mormont seems to know that this is an unwatched or an unlistened to place. He seems to have that idea that it's kind of a dark spot.
Yeah, it was one of our big questions was whether or not everybody everywhere was being watched all of the time. And then on Patreon last week, we kind of sussed it out further that, okay, there's a limited amount of cameras and a limited amount of surveillance that's going on.
Yes.
So this room is one of the known areas for people that are, educated enough to be in the know that doesn't have any cameras or surveillance. So Gloria is too high, though, and Dr. Nichols gives her some kind of amphetamine to try and pull her out of the sedation, but that makes her have a seizure, which triggers Juliet back to when her brother was having seizures. It's all very dramatic and traumatizing.
So, okay, there's been some accent conversation leading up to as we've been discussing the show about some people are bumping on Rachel Ferguson's accent. It wasn't bothering me at all. And then this is the episode, or maybe it was the next one, but this is the 2-episode arc where it suddenly dawned on me that young Juliet is just a regular, normal American voiced girl. But adult Juliet has a weird Swedish, Scottish, American, Euro hybrid thing going on.
Yeah.
And so now I'm like, okay, now I get it.
One of those things where once it's pointed out to you, you can't help but kind of pick up on it.
Well, I was just like, all of a sudden I was like watching one of the scenes with the young Juliet, and I was like, wait, this girl just has a normal accent, just a normal American accent. Very,
Does she also have red hair? Maybe
kind of reddish. Juliet's kind of like got a strawberry blonde thing going on, so that's fine. But yeah, anyway, yes. So seizure, starts the flashbacks.
Yeah,
they bring her back. It doesn't take her.
Right. Back in janitorial,
Pull her back from the brink.
Sims loses his shit because his team informs him they can't find the sheriff because there's a blind spot in there somewhere, right? So Gloria finally starts to come out of the drug haze. Juliet immediately starts questioning her about Holston and Allison, who of course went out to clean in episodes 1 and 2. And Gloria recognizes Dr. Jorah Mormont as the doctor who pretended to take out her birth control and prevented her from having a baby 40 years ago. And this kind of starts this spiral of like, oh shit, is Juliet's dad in on this? Like, is he somehow a mole for Sims, or like what is he a bad guy, basically, right, is the question. So Juliet calms Gloria down and shows her the Georgia travel guide, and Gloria tells her about the Flame Keepers, which is essentially, it sounds like an underground group that tries to keep the memory of the past alive, right? That's their whole thing. She mentions the bad guys putting something in the water so that memories will fade. Just gives us a little bit more insight into how they keep everybody kind of docile and from asking questions, right? And she also says they wanted to erase the past and anyone who tried to preserve it, which we were, getting the gist of, obviously, but this is sort of confirmation from somebody who's been there longer. Gloria was obviously a flame keeper herself, and says the powers that be wanted them to die off, that the doctors had to know about this when they lied about the birth control stuff, so that's why she assumes Dr. Jorah Mormont is in on it. And so Gloria goes on to explain to Juliet that she gave her most treasured relic. Essentially, she was like, her and her husband were trying to have kids. Her husband was not a flamekeeper, right? He was, I keep almost saying Oathkeeper. He was just a regular dude, and because they kept denying her the ability to have kids, she eventually kind of let him go, is almost the implication, but they break up. And then years later, she sees him with his new family and his kids, and he pretends not to know her. Mm-hmm. And the whole thing just kind of ends up breaking Gloria. So she gives her most treasured relic, the Georgia travel guide, to the last flamekeeper she knows. And it's George's mom, Anne. So everybody's connected, which is a fun, cool thing.
Keep the fire alive. I feel like I had to yell that, and I don't remember if it was a scouts thing or a fraternity thing, and I've just ruined
probably both
a secret.
Yeah,
you know,
it's probably both. That sounds like it could be either or, though.
Keep the fire alive.
Yeah.
Did you ever have to yell that?
I don't remember yelling it, but I didn't make it to Eagle Scout like you did.
Yeah.
I quit at Weebelows, which is ironically stands for We Be Loyal Scouts, and I wasn't that loyal because I quit right there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Gloria also tells Juliet that she remembers Juliet's mother, Hannah Nichols, and that she was working with George's mom on a magnifying device, which is so crazy because Juliet and George end up doing sex together. But her mom, Hannah, was not a flamekeeper. She says she just shared the same curiosity. So they were on the same vibe,
right?
You know?
It's the one thing they can't breed out of us.
They can't breed that out of us, babe.
I can't get rid of that one.
Our curiosity stays, you know? So Juliet confronts her dad about tricking people.
It's the human way. It's the human condition.
She confronts her dad about tricking people into thinking that they could have kids, and he explains that he was made to believe that he was doing it to help prevent disease from running rampant, and he was just trying to protect his family by not asking questions. And she's like, "You never thought that was bullshit?" And he's like, "Of course I did. What was I supposed to do? I'm Jorah Mormont." And she takes Juliet takes Gloria back to medical, and just says one of my deputies found her on the stairs. I'm gonna go ahead and put her back in her room though. It's just a very bold strategy. And that's when Gloria notices that her flowers in front of the mirror are gone. And this clicks in her head oh shit, Sheriff Holston came and visited me. And Juliet's like, when was that? And she's like, my mind's fuzzy, but it was recently. And basically Gloria tells her that the sheriff brought the flowers, he put them in front of the mirror, and then he did something to the vent, right? So Juliet starts putting it all together, realizes they're being watched, and she throws a blanket over the mirror, goes into the vent, finds the hard drive that Sheriff Holston hid there for her, and then Gloria gives her a pep talk about being the last flamekeeper, and if she dies, the truth dies too, which is heavy. And then keeper. And then Sims and Janitorial.
Change all the codes. Change all the advertising codes. It's not Dragon anymore. It's Flamekeeper.
Yeah. From now on. Sims and Janitorial is watching on the screen, and obviously when it gets covered up, he's like, "Shut the fuck up, I'm trying to listen." And he dispatches raiders to get Juliet. This is the first time we've seen raiders, I think, but they're the Judicial raiders. They've got sweet, catcher's masks on, and they run up in places and just bust everything up.
Yeah.
But yeah, one thing about there being no elevators in the silo is that it takes the raiders a really fucking long time to get down there. It's not like
it's true.
It takes a while.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
It can be kind of counterintuitive, this whole setup they've got going, where, as you and I discussed and kind of went further into on Patreon, obviously the setup with no pulleys, no elevators, no escalators is all a matter of trying to keep control and prevent rebellion and prevent the rise from the lower parts of the silo up to the top where the people in power actually are. But it can backfire if you need to get to somewhere like medical very quickly. So they burst in, and Juliet is obviously gone. And that's our cliffhanger for episode 7. Because there's one every episode. I don't know if you've picked up on that, but that's how they get you to binge.
They do.
That's how they get you in.
And Apple TV Plus, boy, they love to just throw you right into the next episode. Very little time in between.
5 seconds.
Yeah. And then
5 second countdown.
boom,
Bam.
right there.
You got to be careful.
Oh, yeah.
watch one that you didn't want to watch yet, But yeah, that was it on episode 7. It was good fun. Things started to pick up a little bit, right, in terms of the momentum and the pace of everything unraveling.
We need, I mean, so I'm not sure. Kind of now, I'm almost expecting like another like maybe large twist in this. I mean, I guess that's pretty safe to assume, but. I'm on that train of thought because so far I feel like we've kind of predicted stuff pretty well,
Yeah, here and there for sure.
We talked about Sims probably being the real power player, the real guy pulling all the strings. We registered that janitorial was going to be that room watching everybody. The fact that there would be a group of people that were like kind of like.
Low-key rebels.
The secret society of rebels that was trying to keep the fire alive, as it were.
Keep the fire alive.
And so it'll be kind of interesting to see what we obviously have another episode to walk through here, but like just to see what kind of stuff they've got to pull out. I maintain now. This was another one of my takes last week that I went into a little bit further on Patreon, but I'm getting the sense in janitorial looks different. The people in there look different. They have on different clothes. They are wearing like earrings, like the computer keyboards look very modern, and there's like a lot of blue light instead of the warm yellow light that we see in the silo. Like I'm thinking that is like modern. That's
a connection to the outside world,
a connection to the outside world, and that there is like that there is some version of our Earth that exists right now, and the silo people are part of some power control experiment thing. This show just continues to give me more and more Westworld vibes as well. That was another big takeaway, like kind of halfway through this 7th episode. Just like the music, obviously very, very Westworldian. But then just also like I don't think that everybody in the silo is going to turn out to be a robot, but
I hope not.
But do you kind of get that sense at all? Are you getting
it's the feeling that everything in there is a setup, right?
Yeah.
Everything in Westworld is
we have
obviously
the control room in Westworld where like all the park stuff is happening, and then like everything in the parks, you're not like sure who is real and who's a bot and like all that type of stuff. Like
and they monitor everything.
They monitor everything. There's just like some real parallels, I feel like. So that's I almost wonder if what are their names? Christopher,
the Westworld people.
Yeah,
Jonathan Nolan and Lisa Joy.
Jonathan Nolan and Lisa Joy. Yeah, thank you. I wonder if they were silo readers before they adapted Westworld.
There's a lot of stuff in that vein, though. That's kind of
I know
in the ballpark.
Yes, yeah, and a lot and sci-fi and dystopian sci-fi, especially. Obviously, like the themes and the motifs are very similar throughout. So it's just because that exists does not mean that there's like any type of overlap or connection. Just curious, especially because the music. The only reason I asked that question is because the music is so similar.
If you never watched Westworld, season 1 is amazing. It's really, really, really great. Like great. It's great TV. And then they kind of lose their footing over the next couple seasons, and then things fall off a cliff, and you're just like, what the hell happened here? It's like it's one of those shows where you and I have talked about these a lot. They've got a vision for a season. They execute on it. It crushes, and they're like, oh shit, now what?
Yep.
And they don't really ever find their way again in terms of telling a good story. So anyway, ready to move on to episode 8?
Let's go 8.
Let's do it. But first, today's episode is brought to you by Factor. Now that it's summer, you might be looking for wholesome, convenient meals for active, sunny days. Factor, America's #1 ready-to-eat meal kit, can help you fuel up fast with flavorful and nutritious ready-to-eat meals delivered straight to your door. You'll save time, eat well, and stay on track to reach your goals. If you're too busy to cook this summer like I am, with Factor, skip the trip to the grocery store, skip the chopping, the prepping, and the cleaning up too. Factor's fresh, never frozen meals are ready in just 2 minutes. All you have to do is heat and enjoy, then get back outside and soak up the warmer weather. Or let's be real, sometimes you just need something healthy to eat on the couch while you watch your favorite shows. But if you want to cut back on takeout this summer, get Factor instead. Not only is Factor cheaper than takeout, meals are ready faster than restaurant delivery in just 2 minutes, so there's no more waiting around for an hour for the delivery guy who ends up canceling after deciding to eat your food in their car. Factor has been fueling my wife and I over the last few months with a newborn at home, since I don't know how to cook anything and my wife just doesn't have as much time or energy. I have tried pretty much all of their meals at this point, Factor, and they're all amazing. They're really delicious. Best meal kit I have ever had by far. Truly, shockingly, amazingly good. I love their smoothies as well. But yeah, if you're living life on the fly, I could not more highly recommend Factor. If you're living life in the silo with limited options for food, it's time to sign up for Factor with our special offer just for members of the Silo Squad. Head to factormeals.com/OCC50 and use code OCC50 to get 50% off your first box. That's code OCC50 at factormeals.com/OCC50 to get 50% off your first box. So episode 8 opens with a flashback to Juliet's mother, Hannah, walking her through the cornfields for a meeting with some guy who trades her a live rabbit for drugs. She's like, "You want your painkillers? Hand over the rabbit." She didn't see that. I was like, what's going to be in this box? Maybe it'll be a crazy relic of some kind, Barrett. No, it's a fucking rabbit with a hole in its heart. So Hannah Nichols uses the magnifying glass device that she built with the help of George's mom to perform surgery on this rabbit who has a little hole in his heart because since she lost her son, her only desire, Barrett, is to keep other people from feeling the same pain.
That's right.
You know?
Now, I never saw any anesthesia be given to this rabbit. They just whip it out of the box and slice it open. I thought that was kind of strange.
It was so chill about it, too. I was like, oh, man, this rabbit's going to throw a fit when she hits it with the scalpel. Just slices it right out. Just fucking rabbit was as calm as could be. Yeah, I noticed that, too.
They must have cut the scene where they
inject him with a little feel good,
or put a little a little mask on him for the.
Can you get some local anesthesia or something
for the feel good juice?
Come on, damn.
Gas him up a little bit.
Eventually, we'll just do the flashback scene in one bite here. Their home gets raided, okay, and Juliet's parents are like arguing. It's Dr. Jorah Mormont and Juliet's mom arguing about her creating unsanctioned devices, and the mom thinks that Jorah Mormont ratted her out, and Juliet's mom ends up being like, you know what? He's like, come on, they're gonna tear apart our whole house. What about Juliet's room? They're about to get to Juliet's room and tear her room apart too. And she's like, fine, Jorah. And she goes out there and she shows them like, look, I've hidden this. Is it a lamp? She makes it look like a lamp.
Yeah. Well, it's the whole thing. It's like she uses the parts of the lamp, but this is the genius. All the parts, they come together like a transformer.
Yes, exactly.
Or like all of the when the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers go like Megazoid Zone or whatever, and they do that thing.
Yeah,
that's what she does with the magnifier.
I liked watching the Judicial Raider, the head guy, watch her put it together. He was like, "This is ingenious." He's like, "Guys, are you guys seeing this? Look at this shit. We're about to break it, but this is impressive stuff."
He was having his head blown by that. Old dumbass.
Blew his fucking mind.
Yeah.
So yeah, they smash it to bits. And in doing so, Barrett, they smash her soul.
Yeah.
But they also ask where the rabbit is, and...
Have you figured out why we're not allowed to have magnifiers in the silo?
My impression is that it is a preventative measure to keep technology from progressing.
Yeah, you've said that. That's a good point. I just wonder if we're going to get something like ultra specific about...
I mean, this way they can't make computers. They can't do anything really in terms of like big surgery stuff, right? So they're really reliant on medical. If anybody has any health issues, they can't use anything like that.
The doctors, they don't have access to any type of magnification like this as well.
Right.
Like, it's not like they've got so their medicine is also antiquated and kind of kept in the past.
So I think it's also, my guess is there has to be some kind of a population control thing going on beyond the permissions that are given for having children too.
I mean, I like your original take, which I had kind of forgotten about. That it's overall way to tamp down any type of technological innovation or advance.
Progress is put to a halt, basically. Yeah, which I thought it's one of my favorite parts of the show so far because it's something you would never consider.
Right.
like how important magnification actually is, and how many little things like that we have, obviously, that have helped advance technology and put us into a completely different place, healthcare-wise or whatever. So, yeah, I liked that bit. But anyway, they lie about the rabbit. They say that they ate it. Juliet clearly is kind of on her mom's side here and blaming her dad, Dr. Jorah Mormont, for what happened. And then we see her later in the episode go and set this rabbit free in the cornfield, which I just wondered, like what's it gonna do? You know,
it's just gonna live off the land.
back live a long, happy rabbit
back
life.
From whence it came, Ross. You know what I mean? Like the rabbit came from somewhere down there. Now, I don't know how they knew it had a hole in its heart. I don't know if there was like a bulletin put out by the farmer, like, "Hey, got one rabbit.
Yeah,
comes with a hole in its heart, though. That's the catch."
The rabbit seems like it's struggling. We don't know why. Could be a hole in the heart. If anybody out there's had a similar experience with a human child that might identify with this rabbit, please come pick it up.
And I will part with this rabbit that is broken and has a hole in its heart for one bottle of drugs. So if that barter is out there, if that's a trade that anybody's interested in, he put it on the bulletin. He put it on the, he passed it along through the Flamekeeper's grapevine.
Yeah, that was pretty fucking random. So in the present, the raiders and janitorial are trying to find Juliet, who is hiding in the baby area, which again doesn't have cameras. I didn't like the scene where they showed her in there. Like, two raiders, like, go into the baby room, and they're like,
"We're not looking for a baby."
Yeah, what was that line? That was bad, because she's hiding behind the desk right there. If I'm the other raider, I go, "I know, fuckhead. We still search the room." What do you mean? Obviously, are you telling me the only thing that could possibly be in this room is a fucking baby?
Ross, that's the nursery. That's the baby room. Why would anything else besides babies be in there?
That was such like a Star Wars James Bond henchman line where you're just like, wow, you're a fucking moron, huh? Just the dumbest living person.
People definitely do not go into hiding places that could obscure them based on what else is in the room.
Right.
Ever. They only hide in like obvious places where that you think of like there might be a human hiding in here, right? Like
exactly. The human hiding room.
The human hiding room.
That's where everybody is
found. That's where people mostly go to hide.
Not the baby room. Come on.
Not the baby room.
Idiot. Wow. Yeah, I love that.
Yes, that line was very cringe, though. The we're not looking. No. Hey, we're not looking for a baby.
Yeah.
Come on.
It's like she's a little bit like, she's talking down to him like, what a dumbass.
Yeah. Get your head straight, man.
Exactly.
You know?
Focus, dude.
Focus.
Get
your head in the game.
We're not going to interrogate a baby. Duh. What an asshole. So yeah, the Gloria.
She's not even like hiding.
No,
good.
No, she's not even under the desk like George Costanza. She's just up against the fucking side of it, just sitting there, like listening to them. Like
all they had to do was walk 5 more feet.
And that whole show's over. Oh, she gets caught in the end anyway. But yeah, I mean, that was poor work from these two right here. Just the worst. It makes you wonder how, okay, here's the thing about it that makes it really, really stupid. This whole thing has been operating for 140 years with that type of casualness within the judicial department. They've got to be better at their jobs than that. But moving on, Gloria Hildebrandt gets visited by Sims, who apparently... Again, Sims's crew that he sent in to talk to her, she didn't give them anything. So she remembers him, by the way. She remembers Sims as the security man whose wife had a miscarriage. So pretty quickly here, you're like, oh shit, Gloria also did some what is it? Fertility counseling with this guy and his wife. So it turns out she helped him and his wife get pregnant using folic acid. And it worked because they've got a little boy. He turns 6 next month. So Sims threatens her. He says he wants to know what Juliet Nichols took out of the vent. And she tells him it was a bag and that Sheriff Holston hid it in there. And then although we do not actually see her tell him this, it does seem like she told him there was a hard drive inside. Because he says, he's like, look, if you tell me what was in there, I will give you the drugs so you can go back to dreamy land on the fucking beach. Mm-hmm. if you don't tell me what was in there, I'm going to leave you in here with no drugs, and you're going to stare at these four walls for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
So I think because he ends up, after he walks out of the room, he's like, give her the good stuff every day.
Yep.
Every day. So keep her dosed up so she can go visit the happy beach in the sky. Which, I mean, I was just kind of bummed that she admitted it. She tells Juliet, you're the last flame keeper. The truth dies with you. And then she gives up the fact that she has the hard drive immediately.
Yeah. I mean, look, she tells him, right, what we see her tell him is that she took a bag out of the vent. Mm-hmm. So even if she doesn't talk about the hard drive,
you're right.
Like, they pretty much know.
They're going to go try to find that bag no matter what.
Yeah. And I think to her credit, it's like, there's not really, they're asking her, but the question is almost besides the point, right?
A little bit.
They're almost like, they know that she took something from the room and that it's probably what they're after.
I mean, they even know where she took it from. Yeah, the vent chain, yeah.
So yeah. I kind of like, yeah, I mean, sure, say that she took a bag out of the vent, there was something in it, get your good medicine, like, no harm, no foul. You have told Juliet that she is the last flame keeper, so she should also know. You've also given her the idea that, like, you got to do whatever it takes. Like, right. These people are going to come after you no matter what. It's not a lot I can do at this point. So it, just kind of is what it is.
That's a fair point. So Juliet takes the hard drive or I guess she's already in the baby room because they completely failed to search it. And there just happens to be a desk with a computer in there because, of course. So she tries to use that computer to access the hard drive, but the baby room computer doesn't have the clearance to pull it off because...
No sysop, yeah.
No sysop.
Yeah.
So Billings calls Juliet and is like, hey, you're still not here at work for the third episode in a row. I need you to come up to the office. And so she goes up there and she sees raiders ripping the place apart, right? But they don't find shit. And Juliet tells Billings that she doesn't think Judge Meadows is calling the shots. She thinks it is Robert Sims in Judicial. So Juliet and Billings hatch this kooky plan to go arrest Sims for breaking pact investigation protocol. So Billings' extraordinary knowledge of the pact finally comes into play here, really,
yeah.
for a good reason. And it's a big move, Barrett. Cops arresting cops, Crazy stuff. So Juliet goes through Sims's office after they arrest him, and she finds a secret section of his filing cabinet, which appears to have all the flame keepers in it.
Maybe that's what it was, yeah.
That was my read on it, including George's ex-girlfriend. Like, she was in there, too.
Regina, was that one of the...
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. So...
Flame keepers.
Keep the flame alive! I thought she was going to go find the closet where Sims keeps all the relics and shit, but it's just this secret part of the file cabinet that just requires you press a little button so it opens a little further.
All the way.
Yeah, wild stuff. She then goes and talks to her dad, Dr. Jorah Mormont, about what happened to her mom, and he explains, like, your mom's grief took over after the loss of your brother, and she started being reckless in her efforts to help people, and she stopped obeying the laws. She no longer cared for protocol, right? He says he tried to bring her back. She didn't listen to him, and eventually he gave up, basically admitting that his guilt in the situation is that he saw what was happening with her, and he didn't do anything to stop it. So she ends up dying, right? Then he says he left Juliet in mechanical. Essentially, he's like, you were just like your mom. So I knew eventually you'd start asking all the wrong questions too, and that could get you in trouble. So I put you in a place where you'd always have a problem to solve right in front of you so that you could never get distracted by all the crazy, who built the silo questions. And she's like, and look at me now.
Here I am.
It happened anyway, Barrett.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, you just can't breathe that curiosity out of us, Ross.
Nature versus nurture, Todd.
I already told you that.
Nature always wins.
Yeah.
Nature always wins. So
human condition.
Yeah, Juliet tells her dad that, this is, first of all, it's a nice moment because you're like, Dr. Jorah Mormont doesn't have to live with this fucking...
Yeah, finally there's like a little bit of connection between these two. She can stop hating him so much and he can get a little bit of, a little solace, a little closure.
Relief from the guilt.
Yeah. Exactly.
So then she tells him, hey, Judicial is watching us all. Basically, like, I know you didn't betray Mom. it was Judicial that was watching her and watching everyone. And this conversation is taking place in the baby room where there are no cameras. And just as they're finishing up, maintenance shows up to check the vents. So clearly they're going to install cameras to close those blind spots finally, which, damn, just, if they'd done it just a couple weeks earlier, none of this shit would have happened.
I know.
So she takes the hard drive and gets the hell out of there so she can bring it to Old Lady Walker in mechanical. That is her intention. She's going to go back down and give this hard drive to Walk because she figures Walk can open it up and access all the files, which are in the computer, as we know.
Yeah.
And she asks her dad, very specifically, please let Walker know I am coming, right? So on her way to Walker's, Juliet runs into an ID and search checkpoint. It's like, oh, shit, can't go that way. Got to go a different way. Then we flash over to Billings, who goes home to his wife, but the syndrome causes him to drop some plates, and his wife is like, people are saying Juliet is laying the framework for the next rebellion. So, man, word is really getting around down here that this chick is messing things up, and also that the stress of work is making Billings' syndrome much worse. Which at the moment I was like, what a stupid fucking scene. I know it's bad already. I don't need this, but it comes into play. So Juliet obviously never shows up to Walker's place, so Walker has to open her front door for the first time in 40 years or something, almost takes a step outside. It took me a minute to remember. She hasn't left in forever. Right, I was like, what the fuck is she doing? But Lucas, the stargazer, also gets a message from Juliet delivered by a porter that says she might have found the answers to W. And then just in case you're a moron like me, it gives you the flashback to her being like, that one looks like a W in the sky. And to meet him at 6:30 to talk. So he meets her at 6:30 at her place where she tells him that in 5 minutes, Judicial Raiders are going to be coming through the door. So she's got 3 to explain things to him. And she turns on the faucet just to make sure they can't hear. So she shows him the hard drive and explains the hard drive needs to be opened, right? That he's like, well, you'd have to take it to your workplace computer. This is essentially there's 3 computers in this whole place that could even get into this thing with sysop. And it's your computer in the sheriff's office for the sheriff, the head of IT, and then the head of Judicial, I think. But Lucas is pretty taken aback by all. In the same way that he took a big swing going for the kiss early, she's taking a big swing here by being like, and now you're a part of the conspiracy. And he's just like, well, what the fuck? I've got a mom. I didn't sign up for any of this shit. I barely know you, lady. Jeez, chill.
Yeah.
So she has to smash the mirror and pull the camera out of it to prove to him, this is real. There's bad stuff happening, and if you don't help me find out and we don't get to the truth, nobody will. But the crazy part about it is the second she smashed the mirror, I'm like, oh, well, he's fucking dead. They've been watching them through the mirror. They see her coming at the mirror with a fucking lamp or whatever she breaks it with. She yanks the camera out and hands it to him. He gets his, grubby little hands all over it, and then he just sets it in a chair and walks out.
Well, maybe she yanks it and it pulls all the wires. I don't know if that thing's Bluetooth or wireless. You know what I mean?
I'm just saying, it seems like Lucas is probably screwed now.
Okay, I thought the same thing, and yet he walks right past all the Raiders who are just not sure who that is, let him go.
It's definitely not that guy. Yeah, no, I mean, I was a little bamboozled.
Yeah, and then he just stands at the corner while they bang on the door, and they're just like, no, you, out of here.
Get the fuck out of here,
Get out of here.
Clear the street.
Get out of here, you.
I did get the impression that often when the Raiders are going to do their raiding, they have to pass other civilians who are like, oh, wonder who they're going to raid. I'm gonna, you know what I mean? Kind of rubbernecking the situation. So I bought the part where he hides behind the wall and kind of watches. The part that I didn't understand was well, I hope he's got a plan moving forward because they certainly know that she just told him fucking everything.
Yeah, it seems like somebody, even if that group of Raiders didn't realize who that was, that he's now on the watch list.
Yeah. But she didn't give him anything here, I don't think, in terms of physical stuff. He doesn't have the hard drive. He refused it.
Yep.
But obviously he is now aware of everything that's gone on. And I would assume that Sims is going to be aware that he's been brought into the fold by Juliet. Anyway, Juliet runs, and she runs into Mayor Holland on the stairs, and she tells him Judicial is planning a takeover, and Sims is secretly running Judicial. It's not Judge Meadows. And he's like, oh, shit, no way. Let's go somewhere safe. We can talk. And he takes her to the cornfields, and he asks her about the hard drive. And he's like, did I say hard drive? And it's just a very kind of classically, stereotypically ominous villain scene, right?
turn,
This little reveal here where Sims pops out from behind some corn and, oh my God, Mayor Holland is the big bad, right?
It's gone.
Yeah, and Holland and Sims both say that they heard Sheriff Nichols say that she wants to go outside.
Yeah.
And Holland says, the founders knew someone would have to make the hard decisions to keep our silo alive, a person that possessed the knowledge, the intelligence, the information about everything that happens here. Lucky me. And he says, the needs of many require the sacrifices of the few, right? So then he goes so far as to say that she's the greatest threat to their home in 140 years. Like, this is the closest anybody has come to blowing the lid off of this thing. So we got to make sure we take care of you.
Yeah.
And the way that they do that is by letting her make a run for it.
Well, they got to walk her up to the room to put her in the room where you wait before you go outside.
That's true.
They got to follow. They got to follow the protocol.
I was just kind of surprised. Like Sims comes out and they're like, "We've got you cornered now," and she's like, "There's 2 more directions I could run." And then she takes off and the guys chase her down. And she does, frankly, a pretty good job of fighting off like 4 different raiders at once. But not good enough. They do end up getting her. So Juliet's friend Shirley shows up at Walker's place and tells her that apparently it's being reported already. Juliet, Sheriff Nichols, said she wanted to go out. And everybody's already aware. So again, wouldn't everyone in the entire silo at this point be like, okay, something's fucking up?
Yes.
Another sheriff? Like Sims even references. He's like, 2 sheriffs in as many months. Wonder what's happening with the sheriffs. Like, good joke, Sims. But Billings is escorting Juliet up the stairs to put her in the little holding cell.
Now, see, that was the mistake.
Out.
You can't let Billings escort her up, right?
He's got the syndrome, Barrett.
Well, and also Billings has been like working with her kind of close.
Yeah.
You know, you don't know about his loyalties just at the moment. Like, I don't know.
Strange move.
Seems like you should have like a couple of henchmen instead.
Sure.
Right? Although henchmen are notoriously also bad at escorting heroes.
As bad as they are at searching rooms.
Bad as they are at searching rooms with babies in them.
Yeah. Greatest threat to the silo in 140 years. They got 3 guys on her. Yeah. And that's it.
But so that
one of them's got
Billings,
the syndrome.
Sims obviously has a lot of trust in Billings, it would seem. That's who he wanted to sheriff all along. So
true.
So and has no idea about the syndrome. So they let him do the escorting, and
it doesn't go well.
It doesn't go well.
Yeah, she ends up. Well, first of all, the part that like gets her to a part where she can actually make a run for it is she tells Billings Sims is Judicial. And he's like, shut up, punch in the stomach. This is like, I know there's people defending him. This is a scene where I'm like, explain that Common scene to me then. Explain.
You didn't like Mad Common? You didn't like Mad Common in these 2 episodes?
He's got no range. I don't buy the anger in this man. Punches her in the stomach.
I kind of buy the anger. He seems really mad.
Fine. Billings says, he says, that was uncalled for, Robert. And then she realizes that Billings is having some kind of a syndrome attack, so she knocks him into the wall and just runs up past Sims and knocks him into the wall. And everybody's like,
the bag.
Oh my God!
Swipes the bag.
Swipes the bag, and then Lady Gaga jump Spider Monkey over the railing.
Yeah.
But of course, before we can see what that entails, it fucking cuts to black because that's the cliffhanger for episode 8, Barrett.
Yes. Yeah.
What do you think? Seriously, serious question. What do you think happens when she's in the air?
I think she's dead.
No shit.
Yeah.
What's the point of dying with the hard drive? Like somebody's going to be down there?
She's getting it all the way to the bottom.
Damn.
Yeah.
I hope not.
That's how she can get it down to walk into the people that know her and know that she was up to something and can hopefully take it.
But the flame dies with her.
They know the George story. Yeah, it does. But look, here's my take. So far, when they have cliffhung us with potentially dead people, those people dead.
You're not lying. Every single time.
So that is why I believe, and I also just don't have any explanation as to how she could throw herself off the spiral staircase
and survive
and do anything but just fall down.
Here's the thing.
Does she have a way concocted where she can swing under or something? Sure doesn't seem like it.
I mean, we've seen her almost go over the railing once.
Yeah.
It didn't seem like there was any option once you're going over that thing other than death.
Yeah, and she just kind of like, she doesn't even like, she doesn't like hop over it and like with the grip or anything like that to maybe try to like swing herself under. She just leaps. So that was my thinking, is that, okay, she has just jumped off
Sacrificed herself.
to sacrifice herself and get the hard drive down to the people that can potentially carry it on.
I am going to go out on the limb and say that she actually does find a way to survive because, for one, I don't know how many floors up she is, but the hard drive is going to be broken as fuck if she just falls all the way to the bottom. It seems really risky. It is a piece of hardware. You're going down with this thing, and I understand absolutely the motive of like, well, this is the only way I can get it to the bottom and keep people asking questions, and maybe somebody can get into this, and then they can see what I've seen, and everybody will, whatever. But she doesn't even know what's on the hard drive yet, so I'm not sure she would be in that like risk-reward scenario in her mind all the way. But more than that, as far as reasons I could see she is dead, it did feel like they queued a couple other people up to take the flame and carry it for her.
Yep.
Lucas being one, Billings being two, at a minimum, right? Plus you got Walk, who's going to know she would never kill herself unless there was something really fucking crazy going on. Plus you got Dr. Jorah Mormont. There's a larger squad, right? But this show will move at an insanely slow pace if this is the way it's going to operate. Like, somebody finds something out, Allison, fuck it, got to go outside, right? So then Holston has to piece it all together, fuck it, then he has to go outside. Then Juliet's throwing herself over the goddamn stairs. It will take an excruciatingly long time for them to get to the bottom of this if somebody has to die every 20 minutes.
Yeah. Yes. I for me, the most interesting piece of it would be more from like a storytelling and like a fiction writing perspective, that a show, but originally a novel, would essentially not have any main characters through its first book.
That they just rotate?
Because, right, that's what we've kind of been doing here, is like, okay, it's Holston and Allison. Nope, it's not actually them. It's Juliet and George. Oh, nope, George gone. Like they're just kind of churning through the cast here.
Yeah.
Oh, we thought Marnes and what
Johns.
and Marnes and Johns were going to be like characters that were kind of here at least for some type of duration to start cracking this nut. And so that would be the kind of interesting thing to me, is because, you kind of need somebody to latch onto and root for.
Yes.
And they're not really like if they're doing the Ned Stark thing here, the difference is that when Ned Stark loses his head, it's like you got 7 other people that you already like to start following along with now. You feel the void of who you kind of thought was the main character. But here, there's not really any super strong people that we can immediately kind of like hop over to.
Yeah.
Right? Like Billings is the closest, but I don't know. Is he like are we super invested in Billings yet? Not really.
He's got this annoying syndrome to deal with too. Look, it's reminding me a little bit of Andor, right? Where one of the great things about Andor as a show was that you'd like meet a character and be like, oh, this person's a tight side character. And that person would have to die to keep the rebellion alive.
Right.
And that happened over and over. And of course, the part of it that's different is that Cassian Andor remains alive throughout. And I feel like it would be really difficult to recover all of the momentum they've built if Juliet is indeed a goner.
Yeah.
The problem is, let's say, hypothetically, she does find a way. She jumps over knowing that like 5 floors down, there's some rope that she's going to put the bag over and like fling herself up onto another balcony.
Yeah.
Then what? She's just on the run constantly in the silo? Like, that feels really, really weird.
Yeah, I mean,
there's only 2 episodes left. I don't know.
That's another great point. Like they're very much at this end game with her, with the I want to go outside thing. So you're right. Like as long as she stays as part of the story now, she's a full-time
fugitive,
most wanted fugitive in the entire silo.
Yeah.
So that's also a really weird spot for them to have the character.
Yeah. I just don't know how they do anything with 2 more episodes. Because if the last 2 episodes are just introducing us to the next person we're going to root for, that's just, it's a tough sell to an audience. I'm not saying it can't be done. it just feels like a tough sell. Like, well, yep, that was it. Juliet did her part, right? She rolled the ball forward. She sparked the flame of a few more people now, and then that's how a rebellion grows. That's how one of these things gets formed. That's the part that reminds me of Andor. Is it like you see how much it would take, how many people would have to ask questions and sacrifice their lives and put their families on the line, to be able to escape tyranny, essentially. And I'm just not sure that they've got another character that we're all going to be willing to like jump on board with immediately. So it's a tough spot they're in with her in the air. And that's the thing I keep going back to is like, I thought there was no way Marnes was dead.
Right.
We didn't even get to see him get shot or anything. He was just fucking dead the next episode. I was really surprised that Allison and Holston Becker, because of who they were being played by mostly, that they were just in it for a couple episodes and that was fucking it. So I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. The show feels like it's really willing to take some risks. This would be a really crazy risk, though.
Especially given that, like, I mean, I feel like his name actually might be first in the cast list, but if Rebecca Ferguson is gone, if she's off the show, this is like now fully Common show. And as you've already alluded to, the fact that like he's kind of a divisive performer.
Yeah.
Not everybody likes his one note that he plays. So
that's a weird spot to be in.
That's also a weird spot. Is like your most well-known actor, the guy now that's gotten the most screen time outside of your quote unquote heroes, is the bad guy. Basically, is like the muscle.
Yeah,
so
I don't see that making sense.
That's tough. But like I mean, we've also. We're really talking this out, and it's like maybe that's the idea, is that they're going to elevate Billings now these next two episodes into kind of being that dude, because they've certainly spent a little bit of time on developing like his family and his beliefs, and he knows the pact, and like he's never really been one to ask questions, but now he might have to, like all that type of stuff. So maybe that. Maybe that is where it goes. You bring in Lucas a little bit more, and I mean, I'm not gonna. I will be the last to complain if you want to give Dr. Jorah Mormont more screen time as well. So.
Oh, for sure. I mean, look, I think it could work either way. I'm really really interested to know how it's gonna go.
I would like more. I would like more Juliet. I would like more Rebecca Ferguson.
I would prefer it.
Figure if they can figure that out.
Yeah.
Seems like we didn't get quite enough time with her.
Right. I love it for everybody who's listening who's already watched 9 and 10 and they know. And that has to be fun. I envy y'all's position right now because, but if it was me and I'm picking, I'm in the writer's room and they're telling me, all right, like, we've got two options here. She can either pull off some crazy shit or she's fucking gone and we got to plug somebody else in. I'm sticking with her because I feel like they've done enough shuffling of the deck already.
Right.
I'm very invested in this woman at this point. I don't want to have to take those chips out and then invest them somewhere else.
Yeah.
But I will if I have to.
Yeah.
It's kind of how I feel. So, yeah, anyway, a little bit more. But first, today's episode is also brought to you by Bird Dogs. If you're sweating your ass off walking up and down the stairs of the silo this summer, Bird Dogs has everything you need for the bottom half of your body. Bird Dogs makes the most comfortable and versatile shorts, pants, and bathing suits in the entire world. I've been wearing them for several years now. They cannot be beaten. I wear them to sleep. I wear them to do yard work, to work out, to go swimming, to play golf, to do everything. I'm wearing them right now in the podcast studio. They feel great. They fit great. They look great. Tons of designs and color variations. They've all got funny names: the Forest Pumps, the Art Fart Knockers, the Coach Cockburns. If you want to look great and feel great while you're at the gym this season or swimming at the neighborhood pool or out at the bars, taking in those summer nights, Bird Dogs are the move. So click on the link in the description below to go to birddogs.com. Enter code DRAGON when you check out, and they will throw in a free Yeti-style tumbler with every order, like the one I'm holding in my hand. If you're watching on YouTube, you can see it now. That's birddogs.com. Code DRAGON to make sure you look good all summer long, and you'll get a free Yeti-style tumbler with your order. Birddogs.com, code DRAGON. All right, any other thoughts on Silo before we get into some extraneous stuff for just a couple minutes?
No. Look, the one thing has not changed with the show, and that is that the cliffhangers work. They're continuing to propel the story forward in a way that absolutely has me wanting to keep watching.
Yeah.
We did get, I don't know if we've mentioned this on the podcast, but it did get that the season 2 is a go on this show. So we're definitely getting more of it. And yeah, I mean, man, that's the other thing is that now we're 8 episodes in, and we're barely scratching the surface. It feels like, right? We literally just learned about the GD Flamekeepers, so they've got a long way to go, and so I won't be surprised if this first season is kind of the Andorian, like, here's the start, here's what it took to kind of get the new rebellion bubbling. And then they could just completely bring in a bunch of new characters for season 2 and kind of completely refresh the whole thing and be like, now we're on to phase 2 where the rebellion like really gets its legs under it.
That's a very interesting point.
You know what I mean?
And definitely lends itself to the Juliette Nichols is fucking dead part of it because you're not, look, here's one of the things. There's 10,000 folks in here, Barrett.
Right.
We've seen like 30 of them or something.
Yeah, 10,000, maybe it's 1 million. Who can really say?
Who knows? Somewhere though, in between there.
In between
they
though,
can, But your point, they can bring in any number of new characters next season, and I'm not going to be like, well, wait a minute, we never seen that guy before. I don't expect that I've seen everybody in the fucking silo.
But yeah, definitely, it's going to be hard to not watch any further until Thursday night at a minimum.
This is the challenge in my life right now, the biggest of all the challenges.
But at least I've got the Idol finale to look forward to.
That you do, my friend.
Yeah.
Look, just briefly, I watched it last night. I stayed caught up this week. Barrett and I have usually been discussing the Idol on Patreon for a bit each week after we get through our Silo hotline calls, sometimes as a result of them. And Barrett hasn't watched the finale yet. I will just say, I have a lot of opinions about this show, about The Idol and the way it unfolded, and maybe not necessarily the ones you'd think I might have. I think this show was put in a pretty strange position before it even came out, where everyone that I know was geared up to hate it.
To hate it, yeah.
That was the vibe that was put out through the social media sphere.
Yep.
And that's the only place that I'm aware of that anybody gets any information about entertainment anymore, right? Like nobody's off like reading like Entertainment Weekly magazine or something. It's like you're on Instagram and Twitter, and that's where you get the majority of your shit about pop culture comings and goings. At least for me.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I'll share the bulk of my takes for Patreon, but I don't think this show was as deserving of all of the negativity as it ended up receiving. And I stand by making fun of The Weeknd, week in and week out. He was the worst actor on the show. On the show, he is the worst actor. I'm not saying that makes him, in general, a bad actor. This is his first gig. It was always going to take people some time to get past, like, hey, look, it's The Weeknd, right? Like, that's a big challenge. He's been just The Weeknd for 15 years to me.
Were you bought in on his tequila shot-taking kung fu scene? Or did that one...
It didn't crush my soul like some of the other scenes.
That's where you were just like, this guy, you know what? He kind of has it.
He does. No, I swear to God, though, by the end of the last episode... I was like, okay, he's kind of pulling this off.
And I said this much on Patreon after the penultimate episode.
Yeah.
Like, episode 4 didn't really have a scene with him where I was like, nah, not that, he ain't that guy. It did feel like he kind of, and that was a question I asked. I wonder if they shot this linearly, because it felt like he kind of grew into the character bit by bit and got a little bit more comfortable with it.
I mean, it ends up making a lot more sense by the end of the finale, where it tracks well.
Okay.
Like his character tracks well. I think a lot of the things that are being said in terms of like the offensive nature of the show, I'm not understanding. I've watched a lot of HBO shows. Did y'all watch Game of Thrones? Did nobody? There's at least 2 deaths at a Dothraki wedding, bro. Like, people were being R-worded left and right. Like, there is so much offensive shit on so many different programs, and we're going to point to this and be like, now that's where we draw the line. You don't play with pop stars. I'm not able to follow that.
And you said as much, but like the narrative was, we were predisposed to look out for those narratives because so much was written and so much was kind of like, kind of conveyed in the media about this idea that The Weeknd, a male pop star, had the female director and showrunner removed from the show so that she could be replaced and so that they could reshoot scenes to refocus the story on him rather than the female's perspective.
Right.
So already everybody, especially
Women.
critics and women are like teed up to be like, well, this is going to be misogynist as fuck.
Yes, absolutely.
So
totally understand that.
So there's right. And so then you watch the show and it's like you kind of have to work against what you already think to kind of like remove some of those things to see maybe what the show is actually trying to do with some things. And I don't think anybody is going to come on this podcast and argue that the show was
flawlessly executed
or even successfully executed. But there are definitely interesting things to the show. And I think when it's all said and done, the feeling that I will be left with the most, now I've not watched the finale. People have told me it's insane, that like they have said after every single episode. But I just feel frustrated because there were so many pieces of episodes where I was like, man, if the show was just this, it would have been tight.
That's the problem. I'm at the point now where I am willing to argue the show was successfully executed.
Okay.
I think they said exactly what they wanted to say. I just don't think people like what they wanted to say.
Okay.
And that's okay too.
Yeah.
I'm not saying you're wrong if you don't like the message of this show. It is a very, very complicated message. It is not black and white. It is not as simple as one thing or the other, though. Yep. That's the other. I don't think the show is like in any way, shape, or form glorifying misogyny. I don't think in any way, shape, or form it is glorifying abusive relationships. I think those are two things we were prone to assume based on all of the pre-existing chatter about what happened in the creation. Mm-hmm. I think when it's all said and done, it argues some very complicated things. It is certainly not a fun watch from that perspective. Like, you have to watch a lot of really fucked up shit go down. But again, I've seen a lot of shows with a lot of fucked up shit, so I'm kind of like, I didn't really feel the part where I was like, oh, this is just offensive for the sake of being offensive. When it was all said and done through 5 episodes, I thought I understood their message pretty well. Again, it's not one that I completely agree with or that I want like my friends and family to adopt. Like, take this lifestyle and let's run with it. But it does exist. It is a way some people look at the world. And it's just something that I'm looking forward to exploring more on Patreon with Barrett this week, because it was a fucking ridiculous ride. I'll say that.
Now that you've watched the entire season, how would you grade the season?
Like a B-.
Yeah, okay.
Because it had the feeling of total
That's where I'm at with it.
Discombobulation
going into the finale.
Yeah, through the first 3 episodes especially, it just felt so all over the place. Our main complaint kept being like, what is it trying to be?
Tonal inconsistencies.
Does it know what it is? And I do think they actually found some ground there by the end of it. Like, looking back, I'm like, okay, some of the tonal differences made sense. It's just supposed to be a wacky fucking freak show. Like, that's what it is supposed to be in some ways.
Okay, if Casey Bloys calls you up and he says, Ross, you're the final decision maker. Are we greenlighting season 2?
Yes, I think you have to. I really do. I'm not even joking. I think you have to do the second season because they found something here. Now, the problem is what we'll have to talk about on Patreon, and that's after you've watched the finale, because I have absolutely no clue how they could make season 2 good.
Okay.
But I want to see them try. That's the sick part. Like, I just want to see, because this is so... You know how some people are like, I love Love Island. I love watching stupid fucking trashy reality TV, and that's the way I unplug my brain. Mm-hmm. I can't do that. I don't get that feeling from watching reality TV. I get it watching this, where I'm like, I don't have to care that this is good or bad, because it's probably bad, and it's fucking insane, and more than anything, I'm just along for the ride.
Yeah.
And Mike Dean ends up being probably the best side character in the whole show. He was incredible. He's kind of the audience avatar for the final episode, and I'd always been a Mike Dean guy, and I was really freaked out in episode 4 when they kind of presented him as just a part of the Psycho squad.
Uh-huh.
No, he's just there to smoke weed and watch, man.
Yeah.
Which I can appreciate. Anyway, more idle talk on patreon.com/oysters, clams, cockles this week, where if you're looking for more coverage of Silo Season 1, Barrett and I have done an exclusive ad-free episode every week for each of these 2-episode stretches that we have covered, driven by hotline calls from our listeners that are already supporting us on patreon.com/oysters, clams, cockles. You jump into the up top tier if you want to access the hotline to call in about episodes 7 and 8 this week. And when you join on Patreon, you'll immediately gain access to our entire backlog of episodes for all of our bonus coverage of Succession's final season, The White Lotus Season 2, House of the Dragon Season 1, The Last of Us Season 1, and wait, there's more. You gain access to our entire companion podcast for HBO's classic crime drama, The Sopranos. Barrett and I did a podcast for every single episode of The Sopranos, friendly to both first-timers and rewatchers. Over the course of the pandemic, it was awesome. We had a blast. If you're going to watch Sopranos for the first time and you want a companion podcast, we've got it for you on patreon.com/oysters, clams, cockles. If you're doing a rewatch, we've got it for you on patreon.com/oysters, clams, cockles. We'd appreciate it if you'd continue to support our sponsors each and every week. This week we had Factor, factormeals.com/OCC50, code OCC50 for 50% off your first box. And of course, birddogs.com, code DRAGON to get that free Yeti-style tumbler with your order. Follow Mr. Dudley at Barrett Dudley on Instagram and on the Twitter, where he rarely resides. And you can follow me on the reverse, Twitter at WRBolin, and then Instagram, where I really only put up stories at this point. How do you find if something's worthy of putting up a fucking actual post?
You just do it. You just put up a post. You just volume shoot.
Fuck.
You know?
Okay. I got to switch up my style.
Yeah.
I put up something like once every 6 months now. I'm like, here's a quarterly update.
No
I made a
good. No
baby.
good. Yeah,
Oh, look, I got married. Here's my new backyard. Like I'm not doing a good job on there. I got to do more.
Yeah.
Anyway, bolinmedia.com/shop to grab yourself some merch. Barrett and I will be back on Patreon on Thursday to further digest and discuss episodes 7 and 8 of Silo. Looking forward to the finale with you good people next week. Episodes 9 and 10, Silo Season 1 coming to a close next week. Thanks for being here. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. YouTube.com/oysters, clams, cockles if you want to watch. And remember, you cannot be forced into cleaning.